Thanks for tuning in to episode 4 of the Weekly Ingest. My name is Jason Firch, and I'm joined here with Josh Allen. Today, we're talking about APTs. We're talking a little bit about ransomware and a zero-day exploit in WordPress. Josh, take us away.
Hey there. Yes, so this week I'm going to start with some new stuff coming out. This is coming from Cyware. Always like grabbing stuff from this website. Good news here. FBI and NSA exposed the Drovorub malware, something from APT 28. They call it their Swiss Army knife for hacking Linux. Most of these malware, by the way, I should point out, so they call us the Swiss Army knife, is because they are frameworks. Talked about this previously a little bit with like Dark Comet and these Trojans. They really give you more than one thing. They give you all sorts of control. It's a whole framework. If you've ever messed around, with Metasploit, if you can imagine something like that for hackers, but they built themselves. One thing that's really interesting about this is it's got a new kernel module rootkit that has some stealth capabilities against network security solutions. So, and what that means is they've found something that allows you to gain root access to systems, and this malware within the Drovorub framework allows you to hide from a lot of network security solutions that are popular out there, it sounds like. So that's pretty nasty, pretty scary stuff, actually. It's got a port forwarding module and a command and control server. So that's pretty much everything you need to take full control of the system right there. Is what this is doing. It takes advantage of several functions available to Linux kernels. So this is actually Linux facing. Designed to infect the Linux systems right here. It's starting to become a lot more popular too. Usually it's Windows, right? But Linux has got a lot of use, especially with applications. So we're seeing a lot more attacks towards the Linux surface. Both agencies said this was developed by Russian hackers and deployed in real-world attacks to plant backdoors inside of hacked networks. The malware has been attributed to the Russian General Staff Main Intelligence Directorate, GRU, which is their special forces not really special forces. It's what it basically used to be, like the KGB, if you back in the Soviet era, as it would be something comparable to that, right? It's their main special services center. So this is something like what we have here in the United States, with the NSA, right? They have their little special unit that does things. So we call them Fancy Bear. Some of the recent attacks attributed to Fancy Bear, they've been active a long time, 13 plus years. Earlier in July, they carried out an attack against U.S. government and energy sector organizations. They were able to break into mail servers, Office 365, and email accounts, and VPN servers. So that's a lot of stuff for corporate takeover right there. That's quite a bit of control you can gain with those. And again, in the end of March, security experts have found that Fancy Bear were scanning the internet to find vulnerable webmail, Microsoft Exchange, auto-discover servers. So that was March, and then in July they attacked. It's probably, the start of their attack. This is that whole APT thing, persistent threat, right? Like these things take years sometimes for them to perpetrate, but that's how they get away with it, and that's how they're so good at it. The advisory here, NSA is recommending to install latest security updates, run up-to-date versions of all of your existing software. Again, as always, keep your stuff up to date.
We've talked about APTs in the past. It's one of those things that if you're targeted, like let's take the recent FireEye example. This security solutions provider providing services to Fortune 1000, Fortune 500 companies, all these different large organizations got hit by a very targeted attack that was specific to them. Something that was like a new attack vector. And this is just an example of another example of that, where APTs are just prevalent and pervasive, and something as simple as just patching things up can be the difference between you being a victim and the next story that's being covered, or someone who's actually thwarting these attempts.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point that these are targeted. Again, APTs typically not something that the average user is going to have to worry about in their day-to-day life. This is something that organizations and the government really needs to worry more about. But one of the important things is a lot of these toolkits, once they're out there, guess who's going to get a hold of them? Everybody who's on hacking forums, right? So another new thing that's coming out, or rather not new, but relatively recent, and has been making headlines lately, is the Egregor Ransomware. This one's been responsible for a lot of the recent ransomwares that have been discussed, just within the last 3 months, but really all year long. Kmart was hit with this and actually shut down their access to some of their backend systems. This was used against TransLink, Barnes & Noble, Ubisoft, Crytek, Randstad, Envy, not sure who they are. So quite a few people have already been hit with this ransomware. This article's positing that it's kind of a successor to the Maze ransomware, which was pretty popular last year. Again, amongst retailers. Retailers are a big target of ransomware. It uses this, it's pretty much the same, a derivative of the malware. It uses the same attack vector and kind of the same methodologies. So this is something we also see with malware, right? It's the same thing that blue teams are doing, is updating their tools. Well, so are the hackers. Eventually we're going to figure out the signatures for it and block its methodologies or whatever it is. And the hackers are maintaining this stuff. Sometimes they're just adding fun features too to make it easier to use, because easier it is to use, the faster you can perpetrate the hack. So it's a very, very lively community out there of bad guys.
So when it says that it's a successor to the Maze ransomware, can you tell me a little bit about the difference between the two and why they feel that the Egregor is more of a threat in that regard?
Well, it's more of a threat because it's updated. It's newer malware, right? Which means
just a different variant. It's not in a database. It's can just kind of fly under the radar, and it's just now that it's being seen for the first time, it's just being reported on. That's kind of the angle there.
Well, there's that, and anytime they're upgrading malware, you can pretty much be guaranteed that they're patching things, right? Because when you use this stuff, it never works right the first time. That's pretty rare. Is for something to work. So, and there's reasons for that. Like sometimes they can be too noisy. They require tuning in order for the attacks to work better. All sorts of different things, right? So there's that. It's newer. It's not going to be in the database. Tons of implications there. The thing that we really just need to keep abreast of is make sure that we are updating our tools as well. So not just updating our systems to make these attacks not work, but we also need to update our tools so that we're getting the new signatures, malware detection, all those kinds of things. That's a really big industry too right now, is information sharing, right? Cyber information sharing. What's the next topic we're going to talk about here? Is a really big one. Big 0-day in WordPress SMTP plugin, which is a simple mail transport protocol. Pretty old protocol. It's a plugin you can use, which I think it's being used so that you can send email from the admin, from the root account of your WordPress site. Not really sure what the use case is for that, but apparently there's a plugin for it. This vulnerability here actually allows people to use an SMTP attack in order to take over the account and reset the password. So, that'll put you in a bad spot real fast with WordPress. With the admin account locked out, you're not going to be able to do anything. You're not going to be able to add new users or really recover anything. So it's going to be a big pain in the butt if you get hit with this. So there's a few things that you can do here. And this is an example of them. We're going to get back out to it. But first, let's real quick talk about what happened here. So this was fairly recent. It's a new plugin released in August 2020 with the release of WordPress 5.5. It allows the plugin to always run the latest version by updating themselves. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the wrong plugin I'm talking about here. Here it is. SMTP 1.4.4 is the fixed version of this. So if you're using the plugin before 1.4.4, this vulnerability is present. And so they're saying this is the second 0-day discovered with this plugin, which is understandable. SMTP's been around a long time and it's pretty powerful. It can allow you to do all kinds of things. If you look right here, using SMTP, this is a log file, in which case you can poison the actual reset right here. And this is where it allows you to reset to whatever you want if you're the bad guy. And I think you were telling me earlier that you remember using this this protocol for some other things. So, are you familiar, Jason, at all with SMTP, and have you used it before?
No, not at all. I mean, I'm familiar in the sense that my old job, I worked for an MSP, basic help desk stuff. I kind of ran more business ops on that end, and we used SMTP for just mail send, delivery, and things like that. And I just remember it being a huge pain in the butt. Like
Yeah.
there was always an issue with it.
Yeah. So, well, look, and they call this one easy SMTP, right? So it's true. SMTP it's kind of a legacy thing, and it's a pain in the butt for security people as well, right? Because it does allow for more than just this type of attacks. There's a lot of attacks you can do over SMTP. If you're doing internal penetration testing, for example, you can abuse SMTP to communicate with systems for numerous reasons, to get new accounts, to enumerate accounts. You can, pretty common one with that is you can just list off every valid email that's out there, which is really nice if you're trying to phish people, or if you want to, get a list of valid user accounts, within an organization, for example. And now if you have SMTP exposed to the public, those same vulnerabilities come with it. So even in web app pen testing and external pen testing, you could potentially abuse their web SMTP to find valid VoIP clients. Right? A lot of people have a VoIP, phones, a front end sitting out there, or a server that has a portal to log in so people can update their phone number and stuff like that. Especially now that everyone's at home, working from home, these systems are actually online quite a bit. I wouldn't be surprised if there was some kind of statistic around SMTP showing that SMTP traffic on the internet's been, seen an increase in 2020 since the pandemic. And I think that's an interesting one to talk about. Is the pandemic, has it affected cybersecurity? It definitely has affected cybersecurity.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of people at home. And how many of these businesses you think are good at, making sure that home infrastructure is secure, right, with all their clients?
Yeah. So that's very true, and cyber attacks are definitely up since the advent of this. So one thing that I am kind of looking at is the reason why you might use SMTP. This plugin is just like we were saying before. It's just connecting up from Gmail, Yahoo, Hotmail to your accounts, so it's just all seamlessly connects to your blog and whatever. I think a very no-brainer is just don't download this plugin. I mean, the more plugins you have, first of all, the more bloat you have. I mean, the code base, it's not meant to streamline cohesively together and everything. If you absolutely need to have this plugin for a specific use case, then definitely keep on top of it, just because it seems like there's a lot of 0 days with this, and I don't know, I wouldn't want to be in that situation. So I would rather leave all of that security on the onus of the email provider themselves, and
Right.
just have your own email account that's either hosted in Outlook or Gmail business, whatever it is, and just do your business there. Don't connect it to, I don't even know why you would want to connect it to your WordPress. The only use case that I could think of is if you're doing some type of like email storage or something like that, or if you need to send automatic messages maybe from form fills. I don't know, this seems like a really no brainer. Like, don't, just avoid this plugin, and I think you'll be okay.
Sure. And we haven't talked about this before, but Jason, you're the WordPress admin for PurpleSec. So great to hear, your side of that you would just avoid it. I think that's a great point, is if you don't really need these things, don't use them. A lot of this stuff is built around convenience, but something to remember is if it's convenient for you, guess who else is convenient for, right? And we're trying to make it hard for hackers, not easy. So linking up all your systems with these simple plugins, it can make your life easier. It'll definitely make a malicious actor's life easier. So it comes down to risk analysis again. This really is, everything is risk analysis, right? What's the risk? The risk is it could be vulnerable, and you need to analyze whether or not you can accept that risk, right? Is this something that streamlines your business or makes your life so easy that you're willing to risk these potential vulnerabilities?
That's a good point.
Yeah, and I think if a lot of people are being really, really honest, you'll find the answer is no for a lot more things.
Convenience wins out a lot of the times.
It does, and that's really the hard thing is need versus want. There's tons of things that I've come across in my experience where I'm like, man, no, I don't want to get rid of this, dude. This thing makes my life easy. But then if you start thinking about it, it's like, okay, but it makes my life easy, but can I do the job without it? I can. And is it worth the potentially billions of dollars of ransomware on there? No.
Yeah, absolutely. Or getting a more succinct use case, getting locked out of your account and not having access to your site, or having incorrect information published on your site, especially if you're a large organization, or maybe just a more trustworthy organization within your industry, that maybe you're a thought leader, maybe there's information that's misleading or something like that, and it'd be very hard to get back into it. So
Definitely.
yeah, I would definitely try and avoid as many third-party plugins as possible, because even if you're doing the updating on a consistent basis, it doesn't mean that these developers are doing everything in their power to make sure that their applications are secure for your use.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, look at this right here in the article. Only 52% of versions that they were able to pull are actually on 1.4 or higher.
Wow.
So a little bit less than half are exposed to this. These other here are either, God, I hope those aren't super out of date. These are probably just stuff they couldn't connect to. I really hope. There might be some really old versions in there, but this is bad. This is common too. That's the other problem, is this is not outside the norm, which is I do want to talk about that real quick. Something I have seen people use as an excuse for not patching is to say, well, what's our CVSS score, or what's our average patching at, or whatever, right? Looking for some kind of metric to justify not patching, right? And they're like, okay, well, this is within industry standard, right? Industry standard. I'm sure plenty of people have heard that term thrown around, especially when it gets to where are we at with cybersecurity testing and stuff. So industry standard sucks. I just want to say, because this is industry standard. Don't be industry standard. Be better than that. But
That's a great point. Anything else that you wanted to bring up in this week's Ingest?
Not this week, no. I do want to point out that we will be taking a break for Christmas, but when we come back after Christmas, I think we'll do a little bit of a retro. We'll probably do kind of a wrap up of the year of what we've seen and trends, because we've talked about this a little bit in the last few of these ingests of what we've seen in 2020, notably ransomware, and some of these new APT tools coming out. So it'd be really cool to kind of set that up, do a review going all the way back sort of to January to see where things have come along in 2020 as we go into 2021. Because my prediction based on what I've seen is that this trend is going to continue for a while. We're actually going to see cybercrime still continuing upward. Probably going to see ransomware attacks continuing upward before everybody really starts to catch up on it. And we're all going to be globally generally inside for another couple quarters before before things start evening out, I think. So we'll all still be using our VoIP phones from home with unpatched versions on them. So make sure that while we're all there, that we're taking a really good close look at this throughout the coming months.
Yep. And like Jeff said, we have some ideas that we have cooking for 2021. We're going to hit that strong, and we're going to take a couple of weeks off just to enjoy the vacation, a leisure time, and get to spend some time with family and everything. So we'll be back next year with that. Meanwhile, we'll keep going on with the Breach Report, which is a newer series that we started. But if you like this stuff, like it, subscribe, share it, or don't. Up to you. Other than that, we will talk to you soon in the next episode.
Great, Jason. All right, everyone. Enjoy the rest of 2020.
Happy holidays.